Hi there, thanks for joining us this afternoon for our L&D Today webinar. What you can expect to hear all about for the next 60 minutes is the evergreen matter of topics and trends in digital learning. I'm Mark Abador, Chief Technology Officer here at Brightwave, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour in what I think is going to be one of the most action-packed learning tech sessions you've heard for a while. At Brightwave, we're always trying to push the boundaries of what is possible in workplace learning technology, and we're all too aware that no sooner has one new innovation come along than it is out of date. Engaging today's learners, who are so time pressured and connected and distracted, it's a real struggle to keep up with what works, what techniques and perspectives still really connect with the learner and have a lasting effect on behaviour change, embedding the new skills and practices that today's organisations really need. And that's why we're here. We're going to share with you some of our recent lessons from the trenches of learning technology development. We've assembled a team of some of our best experts who are going to share some of the latest innovations and insights they've learned in the course of their recent work, so that we can help you to be the best L&D professional you can be. We're going to be covering a lot of ground in the next hour, and we welcome your input and questions as we go along via the chat function. The running order we have planned is as follows. First up, our Learning Technologies consultant Nick Eastham is going to take you on a tour of today's 3 under-the-radar authoring tools. Nick knows the authoring tool scene like no one else out there, and has road tested these ones to death and back. These are ones you may not be already familiar with, but are offering something a little different and offering new ways of putting learning on screen. After that, we're going to take some of the new abilities these tools give today's learning designers and explore how you put them into practice with our senior learning designer Ellie Davis on intuitive interaction design, how to teach learners to use your solutions instinctively. And then we're going to have an interview with our special guest Jazz Sandhu, L&D advisor at RHP, who's got a great story to tell about Place to Learn, their next-gen Tesla LMS, and how they've used it to blend offline and online learning together into a unique kind of learning space. And rounding things off, we're going to have another technical update from Nick Eastham, who's going to give you a step-by-step how-to guides to building your own learning chatbot in Articulate storyline, no less. So, without further ado, let's welcome Nick Eastham, our very own Learning Technologies consultant. Nick's role here at Brightwave is to look at the latest tools and apps out there in today's learning space and make sure we're always using the best ones for our clients' learning needs. So, hello Nick, over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Hello, everybody. This is me, Nick Eastham. I'm going to have a look at 3 tools that probably don't have as high a profile as, say, your big hitters, your storylines and Captivates, but I think each of them still have very kind of noteworthy features that makes them interesting. Those 3 are Domino Flow, Course Builder 9, and Evolve. So this is me, Nick Eastham. I'm a Learning Technologies consultant at Brightwave. Worked in e-learning for over 20 years. And at Brightwave, I think we're quite unusual in that we do use a lot of different authoring tools. We don't concentrate on 1 or 2. We kind of use pretty much everything that's out there, and even tools that we haven't used for e-learning. I make it my business to research them and kind of trial them and see what they're all about. And Domino Flow is something that I really like from the offset, actually. It's a cloud-based tool. Use it in your browser. It's fully responsive. It does use the sort of technique that other responsive tools use to lay out your content on the screen, in that you do it with rows and columns. But it gives you control over how you kind of structure those elements, those containers. So you can choose where you want your rows and where you want your columns, and how many columns you have, and how wide each of those columns are. What percentage of the screen they use. You can control how they collapse down into fewer columns as you go down through smaller devices and smaller screen resolutions. And it even allows you to control the margins that sit around any kind of elements you add into those container cells, even to the extent it can actually give them negative margins. So you can really kind of fine tune the positioning of each of the elements that you put on your screen, which is a really nice feature. But actually, I think the strength of Domino Flow is its actions and variables. So, excuse me. It has a really sort of long list of actions that you can apply to screen elements. I've also put on this list timeline, just stuck that on the bottom there because that's something that's in beta currently with this tool. And I'm not really aware of any other responsive tool that has a timeline in the same way that Storyline and Captivate does. So that's an interesting feature and something I think worth looking at. But I want to look at the actions and variables with you today. So this is the authoring environment that you have in Flow. This is your screen kind of layout, and you can see, here are your different elements, your text elements, images, buttons, and you choose how to structure those things. And if you select one of these elements on screen and click the Interactions tab and the Actions button, you get a big long list of actions you can add to elements on your screen. If I zoom in there a little bit, you can see you can show elements, hide elements, swap elements, you can toggle things, you can play and pause elements, play and pause video and show and hide captions. And then you've also got a list of navigational link actions. So you can add actions to elements that take you to the next screen or the previous, to any other page in your course. You can jump to different elements that are on the same screen. So if you had a long scrolling screen of content, you could jump to the bottom to fast forward through stuff, or jump back up to the top. And you can also disable and enable buttons too. Now all of these actions, I've applied it to a button there on that screen example, but you can add that to a text item or an image. You can essentially kind of make pretty much any element on your screen into a button, because it allows you to interact with it. Once you've selected what it is, the action that you want, you then get to select what the event is that kind of triggers that action. So again, we've got a nice long list here. So it could be that when you've clicked that element, when you've double-clicked it, right-clicked it, when you've moved your mouse over it or off it, or simply when that element appeared on the screen or when it disappeared. So if you think about that, and the fact that actually you can add actions to simply the page loading itself, the page could load and dynamically kind of build itself dependent on, and the other thing we've got here is conditions. So any action you put on your screen can have a condition on it so that it only occurs if you wish it to. So you can create custom variables, and you could use those to keep track of the learner's previous responses in the course or previous choices they've made, so that screen really can dynamically present to them screen elements and content that you want them to see, dependent on what they've already done in the course. So that gives real control to the learning design. And for me, as a coming from a technical kind of perspective, that's the kind of thing I like to see in a tool, where that gives me real control over what I can create. And likewise, it's what the learning designers like, and then it's what the clients want as well, so that we can give them the bespoke features and interactions that they really want. We can build those for them in Domino Flow. So I think that's the real strength of this tool. In summary, I'd say two things really. It's the control over the content layout that I liked, and it's that flexibility of being able to create your own learning designs and bespoke features. The next tool, tool 2, Course Builder 9. Similar actually in some ways to Domino Flow. It's cloud-based, it's responsive. I should say it's completely different to Course Builder 6. You may be familiar with that. That tool was around for a while. This is a completely different tool. It's been rebuilt from scratch. It's HTML5. The old Course Builder 6 was Flash. It does mean, though, that you can't, if you've got old Course Builder 6 courses, you can't sort of just upgrade them and convert them into Course Builder 9 HTML5 courses. You would need to build your new Course Builder 9 course from scratch. The thing that's similar to Domino Flow is that it has actions. They refer to them as triggers, and it allows you to create custom variables. Doesn't quite have the list of different triggers and actions that Domino Flow has, but it's pretty good. But the thing that's kind of stands it apart is the way that you control the layout of your elements on screen, your content. So this is the edited environment for Course Builder 9. And where other tools kind of define for you the breakpoints for the different screen dimensions and sizes that your content will respond to, so that it presents itself differently across different devices and different orientations of devices. In Course Builder 9, it allows you to define those sizes yourself. You can define the width and height for each of your devices and each of your orientations of those devices. Now, that kind of means, again, you have control over how much space you have on screen for each of your devices. So you can control, it's kind of your content can determine what size screen you have, rather than the screen being the thing that determines how much content you have. So yeah, you're in control rather than the device kind of forcing on you what what you can put on screen. There's no danger in actually defining too large a size for your screen. For instance, if for a phone you wanted to define a large definition, a large screen size, large screen resolution, I should say for an iPhone 10, there's no danger that then on an iPhone 5 that content wouldn't fit. Course Builder will scale that down for you so that it'll fit anyway. If we look at a page of content in Course Builder, so a simple thing here, a bit of text and an image, you can position elements on the screen relatively using percentage values, or you could choose to position them absolutely using pixel values. You can do that for each of your different views of your different devices. So for instance, on the phone, you could position them in completely different places. So you can do that for each orientation for each device. You can also decide to not show something at all, or to show something that wasn't on a different screen, on a different device. So if you think about that, that means you could actually create completely different screens of content for different devices. You could choose that on your desktop view, you use something like a drag and drop component that is more usable on a desktop, but perhaps on a phone where that was less usable, you would swap it out for something else. If you think that that sounds like a lot of work when you're developing it to run through and to hand position all of these elements for all of these different devices, but I thought of that too. So when you're in the phone view, you've got a little option here called auto layout. So what that will do is take each of the elements on your screen and simply stack them into a single column, one above the other. So with a bit of prior thought about how you kind of plan your screen content, you can make that work really well. So that kind of automates some of it and cuts out some of the workload. But you've got the control there if you need it. And so that rounds up Course Builder 9. So in summary, yeah, it has those controls, those kind of actions and triggers and custom variables that can allow you to create lots of bespoke interactions and features if you want to. And it gives you that full control of your screen and the content that you lay out on it. So on to the third tool, Evolve. So this is a tool by a company called Aperture. It's cloud-based, it's responsive like the other two. It's based on the Adapt open source authoring framework. But these guys have taken that and they've kind of added some new features of their own and some pretty clever stuff in there. They've added some theming features. So Adapt wasn't too great at giving you control over the appearance of your course. It was kind of difficult to do that. These guys have added in control for every element on the screen. So you can really have the fine control that you would want to be able to fully brand your courses how you want them to be. So that's great having that in there. I think you really need that. They've got live preview. So I know this is something that their developers were really proud of. The way that Evolve and Adapt work is that it's not a WYSIWYG kind of authoring environment. You build your courses up from a kind of a form view, and you need to preview that to see what you're getting. And there was always a kind of disconnect really in Adapt, and the preview was kind of delayed. So you'd be building something in the form, and then you'd need to wait a while before you saw it in the preview. These guys have created a live preview, and you can run these two things side by side, your edit environment and your course. As soon as you make a change in the edit environment, you'll see it in your course instantly. So you've really got that kind of connection between the two, and it really helps when you're authoring your course. But what I really like about Evolve is some really novel components that they've created and that they've added in there. These are such things as there's a game component, there's a branching component, there's a discussion component, a confidence slider component. So these are things that I haven't really seen in other tools. And it's the game component that I'd really like to show you today. So what is it? It's essentially a quizzing feature. So it's going to present you with questions of different types. You can group those questions into rounds in a sort of pub quiz style quiz event. And then it has two different modes that you can run the game in. One is called ranks mode. And what this does, it allows you to create ranks and kind of configure it so that as you achieve a higher and higher score, your rank increases. So you might just use a gold, silver, bronze approach, bronze approach, or you might use something that's more meaningful in your company, perhaps. And then what I really like is the other mode, the multiplayer mode. So this allows the learner to play against kind of virtual AI characters. And the learner can actually, you can allow, so they can choose the character they want to be as well from a list of characters, and then play against others. And for each of those AI characters, you set whether they can answer easy questions or normal or hard questions. So they've got some competition. They've also added a streaks scoring thing, and I'll talk to you, I'll explain that a little bit more in a moment. It's kind of a bonus scoring feature, and power-ups. So this is a bit like the kind of lifelines that you get in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, that sort of idea. So this is the edit environment, and this is inside the game component configuration panel. So on the screen here, this is where you would choose whether you want ranks or multiplayer. I've chosen multiplayer. You set up your characters, you give them their names, you set up their kind of cleverness levels, intelligence levels, and the learner would start the game, and they would choose who they want to be. So I've set it up with 2 characters, and of course I'm going to choose Nick, aren't I? At the beginning of the course, beginning of the quiz, sorry, you're given this screen where you're shown how many points you can achieve for each question, and the other sort of features that are applying and that affect your score as you go through. Now I've jumped through the quiz a little bit. I've answered 3 questions correctly here, and you can see across the top my score, 250 points, against the other 2 virtual character scores. They're both on 50. I think one of them was set to be able to answer easy questions, and the other one was normal. So I'm way ahead of them at the moment. Over on the right here, you've also got a timer. So you can give each of your questions a timer that will run down. And you need to answer your question quickly before you lose that point. And then here are your power-ups. So you've got a hint. On a question like this, it would remove 2 of the options, making it easier for you to get the correct answer. You've got show answer. That simply shows you the correct answer and gives you the points. And then you've got stop time. So that will stop that timer up in the corner and allow you more time, as much time as you like, to answer the question. You only get 1 shot at each of these things. And the game component allows you to add them or not include them if you feel they're not appropriate. And then at the bottom here, this is showing us the streaks. So streaks is all about answering questions correctly consecutively. So this has been set up so that if you get 3 questions correctly in a row, you get bonus points. So that's what I achieved there. And I think that's why my score's so far ahead of these other 2 guys at the top here. So again, a nice little gaming feature there. Once you get through to the end, who's won? Yeah, it's me. So the middle character, she started to catch up, but didn't quite make it. The other guy here not doing so well. But I think that really, they've got a component there that could be really fun to use, and there's a few different ways you can configure it so you can get it how you like it. So in summary, I'd say Evolve. Its strengths are, the theming options, lots of fine control over how the course looks, and its unique components. I think they are things I've not seen anywhere else. And then actually its business model. So its pricing is very competitive. Currently they're charging £24 a month per author, and you're not locked into a year. So you could choose to subscribe for 1 month or 2, or however long it takes you to build your course, and then unsubscribe, and off you go. So those are the 3 tools. Thanks for listening.
Super, thanks very much, Nick. We have a couple of questions, which I'm going to wait until the end, and would add, if anyone does have any further questions, please do add them into the questions tab in your GoToWebinar panel there. So that's a little look at how you can take the latest tools on the market and use them to make a little bit of learning magic. But what do you actually do with them, and how do you put them to work to give you the kind of digital learning content that you really want? What should today's digital learning content look like anyway? To answer these questions and more, we've got a report from our senior learning designer, Ellie Davis, on the cutting edge of learning design. It's all about exciting and unique interactions that your learners know how to use instinctively, I should say, and can enjoy using learning from without even realizing they're doing it. Hi, Ellie, how are you doing?
Hi, Mark. I'm good, thank you.
Great. So you've got a couple of examples from recent projects, which are going to show people what intuitive interaction design is all about and how to go about designing it yourself. Take it away.
Absolutely. So this is me. I'm a senior learning designer at Brightwave. The senior learning design role incorporates quite a lot of different areas of expertise, but today I'm talking specifically about interaction design. So Nick's given us a really interesting rundown of 3 fairly new authoring tools and the things that they can do. And authoring tools are great for easy editing, for consistency, and for having inbuilt user interface and interaction design. So some of the design thinking that you might have to do has actually already been done for you. But there are times when you need to do something very bespoke, and so you either need a very flexible tool, as Nick has mentioned, or sometimes you actually need developers and designers working from scratch or within a framework such as Waveform. Oh, can't get my screen to move. There we go. So why do you need bespoke interactions? It might be because your learning point is really important and you need to align your interaction with your learning outcome, because that will give you the most effective learning results. It might be that you need something really novel. So perhaps you're taking a campaign approach and you're trying to spread an idea across your organization, and you want people to be talking about it. So if you can give them something fresh and new, they're more likely to discuss it. Similarly, something new is also more likely to be memorable. And of course, you don't want any learning to sort of be instantly forgotten. Or it might be that you're trying to digitize an existing device or design that works on paper or in the classroom, and you now want to create it in digital learning. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that right now. But before we go any further, I just want to address the word intuitive, because actually nothing is inherently intuitive. Nothing is intuitive to absolutely everyone. But we do all pick up on familiar visual cues which help us navigate around the world and the digital world. So things that we're familiar with are just easier to use, and we have to think about them less. So that means we're using less cognitive load on our brains, and our brains actually can't cope with very much cognitive load at any one time. So we need to keep things quite simple and straightforward to use with very little thought. So as we said, different visual cues might be different for, say, different cultures or different age groups. Symbols, colours, etc. might mean different things in different places. So knowing your audience is crucial. But also web design and app design have become really international, sort of global languages for everybody, because we're all on the internet and we're all using apps. When we think about being intuitive with our interactions, we're thinking about a scale that goes from frustration at one end, where if something's so difficult to use, your learners might just simply give up and go away, to the other end of the scale, whereby not only is it easy to use, but actually it feels great and it's really satisfying. So we're aiming for delight. when you're designing interactions for learning, recall is also really important. So if we want to get new information to stick, then we need a memory anchor. So it's often something quite visual. And the Samaritans have this with their listening wheel. So this is a tried and tested teaching device that the Samaritans use to teach their volunteers in the classroom up and down the country. And it's how to be an active listener, so how to listen really well to somebody where they know you're listening, but you're not interrupting them. And so we were given the task of digitizing this and creating an active listening module. Now, we wanted to stick to this proven wheel device. Obviously, it's something that we know works. It's also on brand for the Samaritans. Each technique on the wheel is evenly weighted, which is a learning point in itself, that you could pick any of these techniques at any time to use, except the silence, which is obviously core to the whole listening process and therefore is in the middle. So in terms of design work in moving this to a screen, you can see that actually on a computer screen, the wheel works pretty well as it is. Add a couple of clicks and you're done. But what about phones? So that's a different kettle of fish. When you shrink that wheel down to work on a phone, it actually becomes quite small and fiddly to use and interact with. The text that sits on the wheel will shrink down and become very difficult to read. So what you need is a different format. And what most authoring tools will do for you is they will adapt it down to a stack of blocks. And I think that was something that Nick mentioned earlier, that's kind of the go-to format for accessing things on a phone. And it does work, but here, if we've got a stack of blocks, then we've lost our wheel. And our wheel was our memory hook, our anchor. So we had to go away and think about this design problem and how we might resolve it. So I looked around for inspiration, and I went through all the apps that I've got on my phone, and I found the inspiration I was looking for in the BBC iPlayer radio app. So it amazingly uses a wheel device. It's familiar to lots of people. I mean, BBC products are used all around the world, but particularly across the UK. And it's related to listening and the concept of listening. So it aligns really well with our learning outcome, strengthening the message rather than distracting from it. And I got the sense that whoever designed the iPlayer app had their own inspiration, which was probably a rotary telephone. So keeping that listening theme and bringing an offline real-world interaction into the digital, so you can see how those circles on the wheel sort of match up. So here's some screenshots from our listening wheel when it's accessed in the learning module through a phone. It's actually really direct and easy to use. You just use your finger to turn that wheel at the bottom. Whichever segment is topmost is the one that is active, and so it brings up, in this case, a description of the technique and then a little audio example of someone demonstrating that technique to you. So it's really satisfying to use, and we haven't lost that wheel format. Now, every time you create a new interaction, you're always taking a bit of a gamble. That's why tried and tested methods within authoring tools are really useful, because you know they work. When you're doing something new, you can never quite be sure. But we cut the risk by building on things that we did know worked. And so we developed from something that we felt very confident about. So let's take a look at another example, which also benefited from the use of a bespoke interaction. So Brightwave's sister company, Blue Sky, have something called the Flex questionnaire. Now, this is a very successful paper and classroom activity, and it's something I've taken myself, and it's really interesting to see what your own communication preferences are, what other people's communication preferences might be, and therefore how you can flex your communication style to better communicate with other people. So it's really successful in the classroom. Blue Sky have rolled it out across lots and lots of different organisations, and it always goes down well. And I was given the job of creating a digital version of this questionnaire. So how well will it translate to the screen? So I took a slightly different process this time, and I spent some time getting feedback from people who had taken the Flex questionnaire in the classroom, talking to both the trainers and the learners. And the thing that stood out from almost everybody, which is that actually it can be quite tricky to remember the scoring system. So this works like a magazine quiz or a psychometric test, and you're given a series of statements for each question, and you have to rate those statements into which is the most like me, number 4, and which is the least like me, number 1, and then you've obviously got 2 and 3 in between. And so, although that's quite a simple system, it's actually quite hard to keep that in your head whilst you're also thinking about the question. So this comes back to cognitive load again. We can't think about those two things at exactly the same time, or at least not very easily. So this time, we took a slightly different approach, and we did a lot of trial and iterations. So I wireframed out some options that I thought might work, and then I spent time talking them through with the senior developer and the art director, and we sort of printed them out, had them on paper, tried out what we thought would work, what wouldn't work, looked at what different issues might be. And in the end, we actually dropped the numbers all together and found a much more direct way for people to order their preferences. So this is how the screen looks now. This is how the question looks on a screen. And you just use your finger or a mouse to literally order your preferences from most like me to least like me. So there is no numbering system to remember. There's also another benefit, which was that sometimes people would give 2 options the same number, so they might have 2 number 1s, and then that kind of messed up the scoring system at the end of the questionnaire. So with this system, you pick them up and you move them, but that automatically replaces everything else. So you can only ever have one thing in every one position. You're always adjusting the order. So that prevented that even happening. We didn't have to put in any error messages or warnings to people. That was taken care of in the design. And it felt logical to us when we were brainstorming it that actually the one that's most like you sits at the top in the primary position, and the one that's least like you is at the bottom. But just to make sure that that was definitely obvious to everybody, then we put a scale on the side of most to least, and that's persistent throughout the questionnaire so that it's always there for people to check if they need to. Hopefully, it is foolproof. So that one has yet to be released to its wider audience. So when I get feedback on that, I can share it with you. But that's how we do it at Brightwave. We design intuitively. So the design process can be intuitive in itself. Look at the world around you, look at what feels right to you, talk to other people, find out what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and try something new. Don't be afraid to scrap some ideas or build on ideas. So I think when you find the one that really does the trick, you'll feel it and you'll know about it. And if you want to talk any more about interaction design, then do get in touch with me on Twitter or via contact details that Mark will share at the end.
Or ask questions in the webinar, so which we can pick up towards the end as well. So we have seen some tools you can use to build e-learning content with, and we've seen the designs, but what's about the place where you put them to work? What are today's workplace learning spaces and cultures all about? It's a term we hear a lot, but what does a learning organisation really look like? To answer all those questions, we sent our customer success manager, Zoe Hedinger, to talk Tesla with our special guest, Jazz Sandhu, L&D advisor at RHP, an award-winning housing association operating across West London boroughs of Hounslow and Richmond. RHP are a genuine learning organisation who walk the walk as well as talk the talk. They've worked hard recently to establish an approach to L&D for their colleagues, which is innovative and driving real results for engagement and improvement across the organisation. Here's what Jazz had to say when we sent Zoe out to interview her.
RHP, a housing association, have been using our next-gen LMS Tesla for about a year now. Before, they'd been using an old school system for a long time, and they came to Brightwave really keen to reinvigorate their learning culture and carry out a system-wide update that would better support what is actually a very enthusiastic workforce towards learning. So the organisation described themselves as digital by choice, not by default. So their learning and development offerings really needed to reflect that better. RHP's Tesla is a great example of how the creation of an open space for learning can enable and empower employees. It forms a key part of the digital blend that helps join RHP's online and offline learning. And it creates that hybrid social space where talent can be unlocked. And learners can see what personal development is out there, what they can achieve when they've got the place to learn, and share and apply new skills and knowledge to old problems. So I'm here now at RHP's amazing offices in South West London with Jazz Sandhu, Learning and Development Advisor. So first up, I thought you should tell us a bit about the place to learn from your perspective. So what was the origin of the idea to get it? Why did you make that decision to take your L&D in a new and exciting direction?
Okay, so I've actually been working in the L&D team for about 4 years, and before our old system, RH Place to Learn was really, really outdated. It was only used for new starters and managers. It was quite formal, rigid, didn't really change much, and I knew that needed to change. So the thought process behind RH Place to Learn is an online knowledge hub for all of our employees to use, doesn't matter what your job title is, where you can log on with easy access and have access to all of the group's information all on one site. So that was the sort of main focus. And we really wanted it to be a place for people to go and learn something. So whether that was sparking their imagination, learning something new from outside the sector, or having a read of our new strategic framework, whatever it may be, we wanted that to be the place for people to go.
Yeah, so kind of allowing people to educate themselves and explore things themselves.
Absolutely, and our people are very much into self-directed learning, as opposed to having learning imposed on them. We recognise that, so actually what better way than to have something that you can log into, whether it be from your mobile phone, your tablet at home, wherever place they are, or even at work, that's the place that they go.
So that kind of change takes quite a bold learning culture, really. Were you always confident that that transition would be successful and welcomed by everyone?
Absolutely. Our people are very, very open to change, and they're very resilient. We've been through masses of change, being a housing association anyway, so actually we know a lot about our people. We use the data about our people to be able to make decisions like the one that we made with RH Place to Learn. So we knew that it would be welcome, but we also knew we had to take them on along with us on the journey. So before RH Place to Learn was even opened up to all of our employees, we had a testing group, we had feedback sessions with managers, finding out what sort of content people wanted on there, what would be really useful, as opposed to the old site. So we really knew which direction that we wanted to take it, but we wanted to bring our people along with us.
Yeah, and you kind of invested into a launch plan to really...
Absolutely, yeah, and that was a really easy process.
Okay, cool. Let's talk a bit more about the impact that it's had on the business. So what has the Place to Learn changed about the way you do business, whether that's kind of on a day-to-day basis on the bigger picture, and what can you do now that maybe you couldn't do before?
So it's actually worked really well and aligned with our whole digitalisation piece. We, as a housing association, expect our customers to go online and do most of their transactional stuff online. So actually, we should absolutely mirror that with our employees. So, you know, instead of having to look in old folders and paper copies for things, we wanted one site to be able to have all the information that they need. It's changed the way our people think about learning, because actually we're finding that as much as I used to think generation theory played a big part in how our people like to learn, and we do have an ageing workforce, it absolutely has not been the way here. You're getting older people here, people that have worked here for 20 to 30 years, the most eager about RH Place to Learn, as opposed to our millennials. So it's been really, really interesting to see that from a strategic sort of L&D perspective, to find out how our employees' sort of learning preferences have taken on a sort of simple system, really.
Yeah, quite insightful.
Really, really insightful, yeah.
So how does the Place to Learn change the way that your employees, we've kind of touched on this, they interact with the business? So as a social learning space, has it improved levels of engagement? Has it brought groups of learners together in any unexpected ways?
Yes, so having the community feature means that you're able to get people in one place talking about what they've learned from a specific learning pathway or a module or something that they've read, something that they've done online. And also having the leaderboard functionality switched on is amazing. Our people are super competitive with each other and they love a challenge, and I love the control that I can reset all of their points whenever I want to, and we can start new incentives. So we've done that, or we will be doing it next week for a new incentive that we'll be running for our people. So originally when we first launched RH Place to Learn, we had incentives with Nando's vouchers, Amazon vouchers, for people who had the most points. So you really did get a great sense of competition and people really sort of reading and understanding all of the knowledge and finding out things that they actually didn't know before. So it's really been interesting, insightful for us, but also fun for us to be able to be part of this project as well.
Yeah, it's that kind of gamified learning coming into practice.
Yes, love it. And I think our people really react well to that sort of learning.
Yeah. So we have a lot of conversations in the L&D world around where next-gen learning methods, so the social and collaborative tools, etc., that you have on something like Tesla, how that complements or replaces the traditional LMS and face-to-face training. So what do you think the big value there has been to RHP, and why choose this over just a basic LMS?
An LMS to us is something that we wouldn't even consider for our brand. We are very confident and sure of who we are. So actually, in terms of delivering learning interventions, it needed to be something that has the ability to consider various different parts of how people like to learn. We prefer that blended approach. So what the Tesla system gives us is the ability to be able, for somebody to be able to read something, then to go listen to a podcast, watch a video, and then go do something in the business. So we're able to utilize everything that we have as a business, but still be able to report from it from one system, which absolutely works for us. And it's definitely the way organisations should think about going. Face-to-face workshops for me, you know, there's definitely a use for them, but I think, you know, there's so much more that can be done online, and using peer-to-peer community groups, support through that sort of, you know, online community is going to get you more results than you ever would have hoped for, definitely.
So we are working at the moment on really big improvements to our reporting tool. It's going to be launching this year, and it will allow you to build your own custom template. So how do you think this will impact you? Will it change maybe the way you approach your metrics, or just how will it impact you?
Reporting, as anyone who working in L&D knows, is the biggest tool for your own evaluation. So having a system that is able to manipulate the data for you is a lot simpler than you trying to figure it out in your own head or just by knowing your employees. I think that all of the updates and upgrades that you guys have made have been fantastic, and what you do get with Tesla is a weekly update of anything that's been done in that week, and it's really simple information, so I can tick the list off in my head going, okay, well that's been done in 2 months' time, or that's been done next week, so I know what to look out for. And also the relationship that we've got with you as our account manager, you're always there to let us know about any sort of updates. So yes, reporting is going to be, if you guys can get that even better, that's going to be even more amazing.
So just lastly, finishing up, I wanted to quickly touch on how your site looks, because I've mentioned to you a few times now that I work with a lot of Tesla clients, and no offence to anyone else, but your Tesla is definitely my favourite in terms of the look and feel. So you've customised the site to sort of align really well with your brand values, and just look great. So I want to know how important that is to you, and whether you think that makes a difference to how your learners relate to it, how they use it. Do they sort of accept it more because of that, and how easy is that to do? Like, how do you find that customizing?
We would not have opted for Tesla if we weren't able to put our mark all over it. And there are plenty of organisations out there that we were talking to at the same time as when we were in talks with you guys, that were, you know, offering the world, but it was their world, and that doesn't work for us. We're very sure of who we are, and actually for us, our people are very sure of what our brand is. So for us, that consistency piece is, you know, absolutely key. We needed to make sure it's got us written all over it, so it feels authentic to the end user. So it feels like us, so it's not a change and it's not scary, because for any type of transition piece, you need to make sure you've got that fluidity in there. For us, it was such a simple conversation, working with my comms team, with you guys, to be able to say, this is what we want, this is how we want it. And, you know, we pushed back on the things that we didn't like, and we were able to turn on or turn off functionality that we didn't like. We just made it very us. And even today, almost a year after the launch, you still get people complimenting the look of it, and people know where to go for things, and it's all very simple for them. So we try to replicate our company website. Our website, you can do everything in 3 clicks, and that's the same sort of methodology that we wanted for the Tesla site as well, just to have everything within 3 clicks. And for our people, it's so important, because I wouldn't be willing to put a product out to them if I wasn't absolutely confident that it sort of screamed RHP and it screamed our values.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Thank you.
All right then, well, thanks so much for talking to me today. It's always lovely to talk to you. Look forward to seeing where else it goes in the future.
Fantastic.
Great. So thanks very much to Zoe and Jazz. Okay, for our final segment today, we're going to focus on one of the latest buzzes in the L&D space, chatbots. There's lots of talk in L&D, AI and chatbots, and a whole range of approaches, from simple discussion tools to full-blown machine learning applications. So before you start, Nick, one simple question for you. Is this a simple discussion forum that you're going to, or simple discussion bot rather, that you're going to demo? Or is it something you need a master's degree in AI to create?
It's the former. Yes, it's a simple beginner's end of bots, because you're right. Yes, with full-blown AI, of course, that can be very complex, and you can spend a lot of time building those things. But yeah, what I wanted to do today was kind of show you that actually you don't need to spend all that long, and you don't need lots of clever programming and machine learning to get in on the chatbot thing. So yeah, it's me again. I'm still Nick Eastham. I'm still learning technologies consultant. But yeah, we're going to talk about bots. So, you know, we've seen in learning, they can be used in virtual classrooms as assistants. And I've seen them used to curate learning pathways. So, you know, they've been built into LMSs to kind of, curate and, list of courses that are relevant to learners depending on their roles, and to just aid learners to find the kind of things that they need, the courses that they need. But less, I think has been done less, is that, putting bots actually into courses themselves. So that's what I thought I would show you today, because that is possible. What do we need to do to achieve this? 4 things, really. I'm going to show you all of them, so hold on to your hats. But yeah, remember that this is recorded, so you don't need to remember all of this stuff I'm going to show you, because it's going to be in depth. You can watch the recording later on at your leisure and build your own bot. So we need to create a knowledge base. So that's the database of content, of subject matter that you want your learner to be able to access. We need to connect it to a web bot service. We need to choose a chat channel, and so that's the facility that the learner will use to access that knowledge via the bot service. And then we need to add it into a course, or it could be just a simple web page, actually. What are we going to use to do these things? We're going to use a couple of Microsoft services, so Microsoft's Q&A Maker, Microsoft's Azure Portal. We're going to use Skype, but you could use other things, and we're going to use Storyline today as our course. So, first things first, create your knowledge base. So we're going to use Microsoft's Q&A Maker, and I've put the URL there in the orange. That's qnamaker.ai. So it's a Microsoft service. You need to log into this. All you need, though, is a Microsoft account. So I mean, most people have got them anyway, or your business may have one. Or if you want, you can just create a new one. Sign in, and you will be dropped on this page, and you want to click this Create a Knowledge Base button here at the top. And that will simply load you this next page, where you'll see step 1, create a Q&A service. Click this. So now this has taken us into Microsoft Azure portal. And again, you need to be signed into Microsoft for this thing to pop up. It's taken us right to where we need to be, into this Q&A maker, create Q&A maker form. And the first thing we need to do is to give our Q&A knowledge base a name. So I'm going to create a GDPR bot, a GDPR learn bot that can answer your GDPR queries, if you have any, which I'm sure people do these days at the moment, certainly. Let's put the names in there. So I've just entered it into the top box, but it's also filtered it down. It's done this, it's automated this, put this name through these other boxes. You've also got this subscription drop-down box here. So I've got it set to pay-as-you-go at the moment. But there is a free trial available where you get free access to this service for 30 days or $200 worth of use. And the use depends on kind of how many people are accessing it. And so if you just want to have a go at this, you want to build your own bot, just use that free trial. That's what I did initially. But you might also find that your company already uses Microsoft Azure, already has you know, a subscription to it, and you can use that. Scroll down this middle pane, and we just need to click this Create button at the bottom. I've also checked the little pin to dashboard. It's going to add it to our Azure portal dashboard, which is essentially this kind of area here. So once you click that, it takes a minute or two to deploy that service, and that's what this little tile on your dashboard is here. That's kind of that's just submitting that deployment, as it says there. So you wait for that to appear. Once that's done, it drops you straight onto this page. So this is still, we're all still in the Azure portal here, but now we need to jump back to the Q&A service page. And we now scroll down to step 2, and we've got 3 drop-down areas, drop-down boxes that you need to select things from. So this top one is the Azure Directory ID. Basically, that's your Microsoft account that you've logged in. You'll see that if you drop this box down, that'll be there. It's probably the only thing that's there. Select that. The subscription thing, well, that's pulled through my pay-as-you-go, but it would pull through your free trial if that's what you're using. And then the bottom box has in it the name of your Q&A service. So at the moment, we've just created one, haven't we? That's the thing we just named, Brightwave GDPR bot. So add that in there. Scroll down. Step 3, name your knowledge base. Well, it's got the same thing, Brightwave GDPR bot, and that will appear in there automatically for you. And then you need to populate your knowledge base. So what this means, this is putting the information, this is putting the subject matter into your knowledge base that your Learn bot is going to access. So this is actually very easy to do. You can add URLs of FAQ pages that already exist online. So GDPR, there's a lot of data out there on the internet about it. I thought the best place to go is the ICO website, the Information Commissioner's Office website. And yes, on their site, I found a GDPR FAQ page, and that's the URL of it. So simply, you just click this add URL and put it in the box. And as well as that, and you can add as many of these as you see fit, as you need. But you can also pull in data from documents that you've created yourself. So you can add your own files. And these can simply be Word documents that you've created. So I've created one here for us. You simply put in a question, add a question mark, and put your answer text in. So I've got 2 questions here. Who are Brightwave and who will win the World Cup? So save that. This is my document name here. You just need to save that locally and browse for it, and it will upload it onto this Q&A maker site. And then you just need to click the Create Your KB, Create Your Knowledge Base. Click this button. Again, it takes a minute or 2 to kind of pull in all this information, but you can see it here, the questions from the GDPR site and the answers, pairs of them as you run through. And at the bottom, here's the information it pulled in from our Word doc. Who are Brightwave? Who will win the World Cup? I'm hedging my bets there. Brazil, we reckon, maybe still. Could be Russia, though, maybe. Who knows? Senegal. Somebody from Senegal in the room. Once you've done that, you can click the publish, and it loads in this next page, and there's a publish button. They've made it all very simple for us. Click this button, and again, it takes a few moments for this to appear, but it gives you a bit of, embed code there. It's got a few IDs in there that we need to connect all our bots and our services together. So we'll need that later on. The next stage is to create your bot service. So this is something you do back on the Azure portal. So if we click on our tab back to our Azure portal page, this is the page that it left us on before. We need to go up to this create a resource button to create our webbot resource. We click that, loads in this panel. You need to find this AI and machine learning option. Once you click that, loads in this panel of products, Microsoft products. Scroll down in this panel till you see web app bot. Click on that. And it's given us another panel, a bit like we had for our Q&A maker service, where we need to name our bot. So it's the same process, really. You need to enter your name in there. So I'm going to call it Brightwave bot. Again, it's populated these other fields. There are some pricing options here, and you'll need to choose what you need there. But I can tell you that if you chose the top option from each of these pricing drop-downs, that is the free option. We need to scroll down in this box before we hit that create button, and we need to change our bot template, because what we need is not the basic C#. That's a bit complex for us at the moment. We need to click that, scroll down a bit, and click on the question and answer option there. Click that, select it, and it will pop it into here. You can see we've got that now. Bot template, question and answer. Then click the create button. And again, a bit like before, it takes a little while to deploy, but your tile will appear on your Azure dashboard. Here it is. Once it's there, click on it. And in this middle panel, we need to scroll down to application settings. Click on this. It will load in this panel here. Scroll down in here until you see these three items here: Q&A, 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 authorization key, endpoint, and knowledge base ID. Now these things, we need to put in the IDs for these. And where are they? They're in that Q&A maker page that should still be open in our browser. So we come back here. I've blurred these out because these are our IDs. You need to, you'll be using yours. But take this top one, copy that, paste it in the Q&A knowledge base ID field. In it goes. Back again, take the bottom one, put it into the Q&A authorization key field. And then the middle one, the host address, put that into the Q&A endpoint host name field. So that's all done. Push that over there. And then we're on to the next stage, which is actually to select the channel that we're going to use, which essentially means that's the kind of panel, the chat panel that will appear in your course. There are different options you can select here. And again, you're selecting it in the Azure portal. In this central column here, scroll back up from your application settings up to channels. Select that, and you'll see options here. Skype, you can use Facebook Messenger, Slack. We're going to use Skype today, so if we select that, click the messaging option here, and you just need to ensure that enable messaging is selected and click the save button. Pops up some terms of service. You need to agree to that. Hit the agree button, and then you're done with selecting your chat channel. On to the last bit, adding your chat channel into your course. So we need, first of all, to go to this Skype developers page. So this is it. This is the URL for it, dev.skype.com. You don't need an account with this. You don't need to log in. Simply click on this speech bubble icon. Takes you to this page. And as it says here, you can add chat to your website with 2 lines of code. Scroll down. Here they are, 2 lines of HTML. And you need to put that into your course or your web page. So, as I said, I'm going to use Storyline. So I've created just a single page storyline course, and this is the published output from it. I'm going to add these 2 lines of code into this HTML5 HTML page. But equally, if you're using the Flash output, you need to add it into there also in the same way. So if you open this up in your text editor, we use Notepad++. It's free. It's great. You could just use simple Notepad if you want to. This is the HTML page opened up in your text editor. So you need to scroll down until you see the body tag. That's this here, body. You don't need to worry about all this other complicated stuff that's floating around on the screen. Just find the body tag, and in a space after it, you need to add in these 2 lines of HTML. Both of these go into your HTML page. Put them in there next to each other, directly after the body tag. And then we need to update this bot ID, your bot ID there. We need to go back to the Azure portal and grab that and put it in. So we're back at the Azure portal. Again, click on these application settings and actually scroll down again to that same area where you had these 3 Q&A IDs. And just above them is the Microsoft App ID. Copy that, jump back to your HTML page and paste it in here. Save this page and you're kind of done. Run your course. This is my course. You will now see that you've got a Skype chat channel little kind of icon, floating button there on your page or outside your page in your browser. Click on that and here it is, Brightwave bot. We've got it. You don't need to sign in. You can if you want to. If you do that, it will save the kind of chats, the discussions you have with your bot. You can just simply type in your question. What is GDPR? Here's your answer. Who will win the World Cup? And here's the answer we wrote into that Word document. So there we are. We've got a Learn bot built into a course. Of course, what we've got there is, it's a simple question and answer bot. It's not really doing any clever AI machine learning stuff, but it is using natural language processing to understand the questions that the learner is asking. They don't need to type in, the question as you wrote it verbatim. They can type it in their own kind of language, and the bot should make sense of it and give you the correct answer back. So that's it, all done.
Thank you very much, Nick. Super, really interesting stuff. So we are very conscious we've run over a little bit. We do have some questions, but we will skip those, I think, for today, and we'll circulate them as follow-up emails to all the attendees. So that wraps things up for today. Thank you all our attendees for dropping by. We'd love to continue the conversation with you, so please do connect with us at our email address or on Twitter, which should be on screen right about now. Here we go. So Bright tweet or inquiries@brightwavegroup.com. So from all of us at Brightwave, thank you very much and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.